Well, the reigning Summit League champs are in the house. Anna Bellinghausen, Avery Howard, Missy Heidrick alongside with you. Head coach Aaron Johnston joins us now at SDSU. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I want to ask about this event specifically. So you've been in this league for a long time and now seeing it on this stage and having a mid-major with a media day at this level. What does it mean to you, and just say about where this league is headed?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think the conference office, Commissioner Fenton, Mindy Kahlars have done a wonderful job of bringing a lot of people together here in Sioux Falls, and it adds certainly to the coaching perspective, but I think the student-athletes walk out of here feeling like there's more interest, there's more awareness, and ultimately that's what you want. That's how you lift a conference, is you have to tell the story. You have to go out and, sell that and put it to the people that they're going to consume it. So I think it's really good, and I appreciate what the conference has done. Appreciate you all being here today, too.
A lot of success in this program, but I want to talk about last year before we get talking this season. So much excitement in last year's postseason, March Madness run, the games against USC, the games against Virginia Tech. What do you just think those experiences brought to this program, this culture of this team, and what it'll do for this team moving forward?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll talk about last year as much as you all want. It was a great year.
Let's do it.
It's a lot of fun, and I'd love to celebrate those moments. And you're right. We've had a few other years like that, too.
Right.
But last year's team was a special team. I've told our staff several times this fall, whatever you thought about last year, that's as easy as it gets, all right? They just get them to the game, and they could figure out how to do it. They had experience. They had talent. Maya Sellen, Drew Gilton, Peyton Burkhart, our returners. To be able to play on that stage in the NCAA tournament, get a great win against USC, overtime win, tough win. Those are, nationally televised. People are aware. And then I think play Virginia Tech competitively, who's a Final Four team. The game was tough, and it was at their place. The environment was fantastic. And it just puts us in a position that if we get back to that, which we hope we do, we'll be more prepared. And it just continues to bring confidence to our program. I remember our very first NCAA tournament run. We beat TCU in the first round, then lost to Baylor close. And that loss helped us, move forward. And just like the Virginia Tech loss, even though it's a setback, it'll help us when we get that chance again, be a little more prepared. So great season. It was so much fun to celebrate that with those women, and they did a lot for our program, and now it's our turn to try and keep it going.
I would say there's probably a lot of people, and you ask any of the coaches, even the players, it's been over a half decade that Maya Sellen has been in your program. And I have a feeling there's a lot of people happy to finally see her exit the roster.
Yeah.
But that is really tough to replace, that type of veteran player, veteran leadership, the go-to when you need a bucket, put the ball in her hands and let's go. So now as you look at this team and say, how do they continue to move forward when you take that veteran leadership out? You've got some players coming back, but it looks very, very different than it has for the past 6 years for you.
Yeah, for sure. Last year we had exclamation points, and this year we've got question marks, and that's just the reality of it. Maya was one of those exclamation points. Yeah. But she wasn't always that. When she was a sophomore, she had Macy Miller on the team, who was one of our all-time greats, and Maya learned from Macy.
Yes.
And so our hope is Paige learned from Maya. Our hope is Tori and Brooklyn and some of those players that we'll lean on this year have learned what that takes. But there's still a big difference between kind of knowing what it takes and then having game pressure. And that's where Maya was so good. She was just so calm in those big moments, so talented, so gifted as a player, but just able to play on that stage in those moments and be totally in command of what she wanted to at least try and get done.
Yeah.
And this year I think we have some players that bring that talent, but they're going to have to prove that they can handle those moments. But I think Paige Meyer is an elite player. She'll be on that stage, on that level. Brooklyn as a sophomore, going to have to do a little bit more as a sophomore than maybe we would have hoped, but I think she's very capable. And then Tori is I just think she's one of the best winners in our league. Tori's been a huge part of all those games you talked about with Maya, and maybe not had some of the same stats because we've had some other stat fillers, but just really understands what it takes to be successful, and I'm excited to see her lead us this year too.
This roster looks a little bit different. The injury bug has come to Brookings. It bit you early, which maybe gives you a chance to plan a little bit, but you will spend the season without Haley Timmer and without Callie Thiessen. Haley was the MVP, the most outstanding player of the Summit League tournament a year ago. ago here on this floor. So as you approach it and you think about making some changes, how do things look differently now for you as you prepare?
Yeah, are you sure you don't want to talk more about last year? This would be one of those times
We
we
talk
go
about
back.
that.
Yeah, because we did. We lost the 3 seniors and then 2 returned. That's 5 players who all were, elite. So you're right. It does give us more time to prepare. Not having Haley and Callie, they're also winners, tough-minded, good players, but it does create, challenge going into this year. For us, we're going to lean a lot on those 3 I mentioned, Paige, Brooklyn, and Tori, but then it opens the door for some new players. Last year early, Paige, Meyer, and Drew, our point guards, were out, so Ellie Kolbeck and Maddie Mathewitz played a lot for us early. We had a win over Louisville, and they were playing a lot.
Yeah.
And so they're very capable. They didn't have the experience last year, but they had the talent and proved it. Mesa Byam and Maddie Vlaston, a couple of juniors on our team that have been in and out of the lineup throughout their career, now have to step forward. So definitely, like I said, there's some question marks that we have to make sure that we can answer for everybody, but definitely I think the talent is there. I think some experience is there. Our non-conference schedule, I should say, is going to create some challenges there early on, but in a way, we'll be able to figure out where we're at and keep moving. So.
That was my next question for you, is that it is not going to be a simple early November and December. You loaded it, and I don't know if that was by design or how you think of this. Just for everybody out there, it's at Wisconsin, at South Carolina. You get Washington at State at home, at UNI, at Gonzaga, at Creighton. Holy smokes.
A lot of ats.
That's a lot of ats. You're going to go on the road. But that's the test maybe for this group to really figure out who they are.
It is. I totally agree with you. And we always look at our season 3 ways. Our November and December matter. For whatever is going to happen in the postseason or not, it's greatly impacted by November and December. So they can't just be tryouts. We have to be successful. We got to find a way to win some games then. And so it'll be important, and we don't have a lot of time to get everybody kind of figured out there. Then we have our conference, and we have our conference tournament. But that November and December will be, major challenges. Those teams you mentioned are good. Some of them are incredibly experienced, too.
Yes.
They bring back the core of who they are, and we've got to play them on the road. So, yeah, it's going to be hard, but, we've always done that. We've always had that type of November and December in terms of competition. This year it seems more daunting with the graduation and injuries.
Yes.
But we're going to have to just figure it out. There's no other way but to go forward, and we'll get it done.
Good challenge. It boosts the numbers.
Yeah.
Coach, with all the changes you're having this year, but you've had that in your coaching experience. It always got injuries and whatever it may be, turnover. It's always been a winning program. Like when you first came here and laid a foundation, what were some of those building blocks that's made this such a sturdy foundation for the years to come and the success you're still seeing?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. I think we've always been able to keep rosters intact. 15 years ago, it probably wasn't as big a deal as it is now, but there's just so much turnover. Graduation is a small part of turnover in college rosters. And for us, when I looked at like Mesa Byam, I mentioned, Maddie Vlaston, even Callie last year. Callie came off the bench for us, and Callie's a starter, but she had a couple players in front of her, and she was willing to do that. We've had several players over the years who have bought into SDSU, which is women's basketball. It's a school, it's Brookings, it's everything, and they love everything about it. So they're with us, and they can develop and grow into roles. And when we have this turnover, there's no question that we have some holes to fill this year, but in some cases we'll fill those with more experienced players than a lot of programs would, who are now bringing in transfers that are trying to figure things out. And so in a way, that consistency you spoke of has a lot to do with just the stability in our roster, being able to develop people in our system, and hopefully put them in positions to be really successful when it's their turn, which this year it will be. So.
Yeah, talking about that development, I mean, you look at a player like Maya Sellen, who you said wasn't the star that she was when she just entered that program. What do you do throughout that development process that makes players like Maya Sellen come out of it?
Yeah, I think player development is so important. And again, that's not to harp on a negative here, but a lot of schools aren't looking to develop anymore. They're looking for experience. Why would I bring in a freshman when I can bring in a senior? That's a real part of what this is.
Very
but for
true.
us, I think we've always looked at how do we bring someone in and help them be the best they can be. We openly talk about that in recruiting. That's our goal. We don't bring in a lot of transfers for that reason, too. And so we try and find players who are really like gym rats. Paige Meyer. What people saw of Paige Meyer, our returning point guard this year, they're going to be blown away at what she's added to her game. And our assistant coaches do a lot of that in the offseason, put a lot of time in with them. But we find players who are pretty dedicated and pretty driven. And from year to year, I think they continue to get better. And we have to be a part of that as coaches, but you have to find people who want to do that, too, and willing to put in the time. And we've had a lot of good ones over the years.
When you have a season like you did last year, we can talk about it, but just brief. And when you have a season like you did last year, is that just a part of the makeup of this team, or how does that sometimes create pressures for a team trying to replicate that success year after year?
Yeah, I think that's something I do worry a little bit about with this year's team because we have so many new people. We expect to have a good year, but there could be some bumps in the road that maybe we didn't have last year. And being able to kind of manage any highs and lows that go into a season, I think, is really important. But I absolutely do think that some of that success forces us to live up to it too. So it's not good and bad, but there's two sides to it. And I think our team will feel that this year for sure. But that's a good pressure. That's where they want to be. That's why they chose to come here. And the expectations, even though sometimes they add a little bit of stress to our lives, are far better than having no expectations. But I think this team has got a lot in front of them. I really do. I don't know if it'll look like last year's group, but they have the potential to have those kind of results. But we'll have to get there a little differently.
This building's been very kind to you, and I know that this has been a great place to be able to play because it catapults you and it gives you that opportunity where you say, you know what, this is that where we want that automatic, and you're going to go there. You've set the schedule up. If and when there's an opportunity where someone says you could be in that at-large bucket, that's where you say, but that's the ultimate goal, it seems to me, is that you want to leave here with that trophy and really punch that ticket, not give anybody any reason to not put you in that field for March Madness.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you want that winning feeling for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a big believer, like, college athletics are shared experiences. You know, our players obviously benefit from it. They're the ones on the court. Our coaches are there, but we've got families here. We've got fans that have been with us forever. And so this kind of atmosphere, it's one of the best women's basketball conference tournaments in the country. It is in terms of attendance and energy and emotion. And so that shared experience is I just love it. It's fun to be a part of. And so to succeed in that is great. And then, as you mentioned, that's the step to the next goals, to that NCAA tournament, and getting those chances to win a first-round game, second, playing a Sweet 16, which we did a few years ago. You have to get there to do it. Winning this is that experience, but it's also that ticket that gives you a chance to keep going.
You punch it no matter what. Leave no questions, right?
It is stressful. When
don't leave it up to anyone else.
Yes, nobody likes the bubble.
Wonderful committee. They do great work, but I don't want them to have to stress out about us either.
No, I want to be in. No, I don't want to live on the bubble.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
We've talked to all of the Dakota coaches so far, and whether we look at the preseason rankings where all the Dakotas usually end up, what do you think it is about the Dakotas and the culture of basketball and just the competitive environment that's made it what it is, whether it be, you know, all the schools in North Dakota, all the schools in South Dakota, and then this tournament being one of the best in the country being held here in Sioux Falls?
You know, I think for me it goes back to probably even before I became a head coach. I think women's basketball in this area was always incredibly strong. Back in the Division II days, the NCC, North Central Conference, you had national champions came from this conference, and they're used to filling arenas. They're used to following women's basketball. If you go down levels, the high school basketball in this area is fantastic. There are a bunch of Division I, Division II, NAI, really elite women's players that play college basketball from this area. And so for us, it's about kind of capitalizing on those things that have always been there, but tradition and area talent, those things I think have a lot to do with our success.
You said the word success. So, Coach, I'm going to ask you, what
perfect.
does success look like to you this year?
You know, I always feel like my number one job is to help people get to their potential, understand what their goals are, what is it they want to try and achieve, and how do we help them do that. And that translates into winning, into school, into a lot of things. But it's really listening and understanding what they're trying to achieve and then insert ourselves where we can to try and help them do that.
Well, Coach, best of luck this season. Thank you so much for the time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.